We begin with the Iranian Supreme Leader's address to the country, saying his country's missile strikes on Israel is the minimum punishment of what he calls Israel's crimes. Ali Khamenei's address began with him leading prayers to thousands in the crowd, marking his first in nearly 5 years and the first time appearing in public since Iran launched a missile attack on Israel. He also defended the attack, calling it illegal and legitimate. The Tuesday attack was seen as retaliation for what he said were Israeli strikes that killed Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah in Beirut on Friday last week, and also the assassination of Hamas chief Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran in July. Iran blames Israel for Haniyeh's killing, but Israeli officials have not yet claimed responsibility for that. Meanwhile, the Pentagon says the U.S. is continuing to engage with Israel on a potential response to Iran's attack. This was relayed by spokesperson Sabrina Singh, who was briefing reporters in Arlington, Virginia. Ms. Singh, who did not elaborate or give further details about Israel's retaliation, reiterated the United States does not want to see further escalations.
We're not looking for a wider regional conflict. We're not seeking war with any group or organization or country in the region. We continue to engage the Israelis, very frequently. We are certainly talking to them about their response, but what their response might be, I'm just not going to speculate further on. But we do continue to engage with them, and I'll just have to leave it at that.
We're learning of more strikes now reported on the southeastern parts of Beirut and Lebanon, as Israeli military orders the evacuation of more than 30 villages in southern Lebanon. These eyewitness videos are of the aftermath of Israel's intensive strikes on Beirut's southern suburbs of Dahiyeh. The overnight attack shook Lebanon's capital, causing destructions to residential homes and buildings. According to the health ministry, 37 people have been killed in Israel in Israeli ground and air attacks in the past 24 hours. The Israeli military says it eliminated the head of Hezbollah's communication networks, Mohammed Rashid Sakafi, during a precise intelligence-based strike on Beirut. And the tit-for-tat continues as Hezbollah forces are also firing rockets into Israel. According to the IDF, its air defense systems continue to intercept the rockets fired from Lebanon. Smoke can be seen rising from failed rockets near buildings and in a forest not far from the border. Hezbollah said it had been targeting Israeli military infrastructure around the port city of Haifa. And there are now fading hopes for people fleeing Lebanon as a major road out of the country was hit overnight by an Israeli airstrike. The road near Lebanon's Masna border crossing with Syria was cut off following the attack. In recent days, hundreds of thousands of people, a vast majority of them Syrians, have been using the crossing into Syria to escape the escalating Israeli bombardment. Lebanon's transport minister Ali Khamenei said the strike hit Lebanese territory near the border crossing, creating a 12-feet-wide crater. An Israeli military spokesperson had accused the Lebanese armed group Hezbollah of using the crossing to instead transport military equipment into Lebanon. While thousands are fleeing Lebanon, the United Nations says its peacekeepers would stay put in Lebanon to implement the UN security mandate. The mission, known as UNIFIL, is mandated by the Security Council to help the Lebanese army keep the area free of weapons and armed personnel other than those of the Lebanese state. Earlier this week, the Israeli military asked UN peacekeepers to prepare to relocate more than 5 kilometers from the border between Israel and Lebanon. It's known as the Blue Line, told them to leave as soon as possible to maintain their safety.
Protecting the safety and security of our peacekeepers is a responsibility to all parties, and I think it's a message that is very important to insist on, and we also rely on our partners, on the member state, on the Security Council to also relay that important message, which, by the way, they do. Second, the liaison mechanism. Well, this is exactly what enables us to talk to the parties and to convey to them messages to that effect, that, you know, they have the responsibility, their obligation really is to protect the safety and security of peacekeepers. Yes, the peacekeepers are currently staying in all the positions. This is a decision that we've made after thorough consideration of all the elements, including the safety and security of our peacekeepers, but also the responsibility we have in regard to the mandate and the population. UNIFIL peacekeepers continue to do their best to implement their Security Council mandate in obviously very difficult conditions. We've been working very hard on several scenarios. I should say that we've been also working on the good scenarios. In other words, you know, if, of course, we hope for cessation of hostilities, what could be the role in that positive scenarios. Obviously, we've been preparing several scenarios in case of deterioration, all the way to the worst possible scenario, which would lead, hopefully not to partial or total evacuation. So, and I can tell you that we are reviewing those contingency planning very, very regularly.
Now, the World Health Organization is calling for a de-escalation of fighting between Israeli forces and Hezbollah. Its Director General, Tedros Ghebreyesus, says at least 28 health workers have been killed in Lebanon in the past 24 hours. He also knows 37 health facilities have been closed in southern Lebanon due to Israel's airstrikes. And amid the intense fighting, a shipment of medical supplies has arrived in Lebanon. The aid is provided by the World Health Organization and the United Nations Health Commissioner, High Commissioner for Refugees, the UNHCR. According to the WHO's acting representative in Lebanon, Dr. Abinasir Abubakar, more medical aid shipments are expected to arrive in the coming days due to the influx of casualties.
As you know, that for the last few weeks, the hospitals were overwhelmed with the increased number of casualty. And I think our responsibility is WHO and other UN agencies to work with the Minister of Health to ensure that these hospitals, they have the tools that they need to save lives. And I think this is one of the first, and I think more flights are expected to arrive today and tomorrow and the following days. I think WHO and the UN system in general, we are committed to alleviate the pressure for Lebanon and the people of Lebanon, as well as other people who are vulnerable people who are living in the country into that. And we stand by with the government and also for the people of Lebanon to overcome this challenge.
Joining us now is partner Gainful Solutions and President Emeritus Corporate Counsel on Africa, Stephen Hayes. Stephen, great to have you on the show today, and thank you for making time to be with us. We've just seen Iran strike Israel. It will be the second strike within a week. Were you expecting this?
Well, yes, I was, and for different reasons. I mean, one, it was fairly widely advertised in advance. The U.S. certainly had news of it, but they were also, it was just a matter of time that Iran was going to retaliate. And it's interesting that it has said that it's retaliating, and partly for the attack on Hezbollah and also partly for the assassination of Haniyeh. So, and in that sense, they've kept their word. I think it's been lower key than it could have been. So, I mean, I think 200 missiles is quite a bit, but nevertheless, they gave advance notice. They were shot down, and they have not said that they'll go further yet. But I think that possibility is certainly going to be real and probably will happen.
Yes, and these strikes are happening while Israel is still considering its own reaction to Tuesday's airstrikes on Israel. Still waiting on Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to make the announcement, or perhaps the IDF to go ahead and do what they normally would do. But it does seem like Iran is spurring for war here, especially with Israel, directly with Israel. I mean, these attacks are not they're not out of they didn't come out of the blues. It almost seems like, there was, some discussion behind the scenes about attacking Israel. This is what we will do if Israel continues. We've seen it almost seems like an opportunity that Iran has been waiting for to carry out these airstrikes on Israel. And I do say here, Stephen, that probably there should be some caution here because Iran does have, even though it keeps denying it, it does have nuclear weapons. It has been itching to try out.
Well, I think, they have denied that, but even if they do, I think it would be a total disaster if they tried to use those. I think there'd just be an annihilation of Iran, frankly. Israel would not hold back, and we know that Israel does have nuclear weapons. And then if that goes, then you've got a problem that's going to spread beyond that region for sure. There are too many allies, too many different other scenarios going on between Russia, the U.S., over Ukraine, China, North Korea, and so forth. So I think that the worst possible thing that could happen is that somebody uses nuclear weapons, because that will, I think, tempt far too many others to do that as well. And I think that once that's out of the gate, you can't get the dog back into the yard very easily.
About Israel's response, and I've heard this from some analysts, that there is a possibility that the Prime Minister is considering an attack on Iran and possibly more attacks on Lebanon, the likes of which we haven't seen on October 7, that date being the day when Hamas militants attacked Israel last year. What do you make of this?
Well, I think that those are very real threats. I think that he will has been looking to draw the U.S. further into this also in terms of Iran. I think the attacks in Lebanon aren't going to stop. They've already sent some troops on the ground. They've hit parts of Beirut. I think that it's going to continue. It's not going to be stopping. Despite whatever the U.S. would like Israel to do, and that's another part of it. A lot of people here, the senators, U.S., particularly in the Democratic Party, are now questioning whether Netanyahu and Trump are working together on this, and I think that's something I've been saying is a possibility for at least 2 months now. I think they are. I think Netanyahu is trying to embarrass Biden by constantly turning him down on his request. And I think that the attacks on Lebanon are going to continue. It's going to continue to make Biden look weak as well. I think that Iran will be attacked. Netanyahu has been concerned about the nuclear plants. Biden has said that's off the limits. But I don't think Netanyahu will listen to that. And then others in the U.S., they're saying, look, the nuclear power plants are fair game as well, if given the Iran's attack on Israel. So nobody seems to really want to come to peace, despite everyone saying that they do want it. Netanyahu clearly does not. Iran, I think, is not has been a major player in all this to begin with, and a major problem. So it's going to continue.
The U.S. position on this is a bit confusing, I have to add. You have a president who will most likely, well, he will be leaving office in January. So right now he is a sitting duck president. He really can't take any forceful decisions on this. And then we're pretty close to the elections in November. So America's position, I do understand, why the Israeli prime minister might be ignoring the president's Joe Biden, but really, what can America do in a position like this? I mean, your tenure, your administration is coming to an end, and then there is elections coming up, and whatever decisions you make will affect your party and probably how people will vote in the coming weeks.
Well, it will. It's interesting you use the term "sitting duck" because I think it's accurate too. We say "lame duck," but sitting duck is right. Also, it's perfect. Biden has no power. This administration has no power over Israel. There's really nothing they can do, and the reason for that is they can't be seen as opposing Israel, but given the election. And the Republican Party is already harping on the softness, the weakness of Biden, and how they're soft on Iran. And so that's going to be played this last month. We always look for an October surprise. I think it could come with coordination with Trump and Netanyahu as a possibility. But Biden and the U.S. can do very, very little in this situation right now if Israel is not going to cooperate. And clearly Netanyahu is not going to cooperate. Other esteemed scholars on this, Tom Friedman, one of the great journalists on this, several of our U.S. senators are now saying exactly the same thing. But the U.S. just has no leverage in this at all. The Palestinians have said, well, he could stop the flow of arms. No, he can't. That's part of Congress has approved that. That's already happened. If he would stop that, it would be an outrage in the public and so forth. So the U.S. simply does not have a strong hand at this time. And I think that Netanyahu is hoping very hard for a Trump victory.
And whoever does become president has to hit the ground running. This war staring glaringly, at whoever becomes president in the United States. Let us just hazard a guess here. Perhaps it is Donald Trump. What do you think that he could do? What do you think that would be his first move on Israel and perhaps this growing Middle East crisis?
Well, right now, I think there's at least a 50-50 chance that he will be president. The polls are essentially deadlocked. Ironically, he might be able to do something. He has a very strong relationship with the Saudis. The Saudis have played a low-key role on this behind the scenes. I think Israel wants a relationship. Well, Israel does want a relationship with Saudi Arabia. So Trump would give the green light to Netanyahu. I think that was the agreement made when Netanyahu visited Miami. I can't prove that, but I think that's common sense that was part of it. It's going to be very difficult, and I think that he would move very actively to quash this very quickly with a strong Israeli response, and he would give the green light to Iran to attack Iran as well. And I think that may solve things. It may not. I think it's a very dangerous approach, but I think that's to me what would seem like a good, if not likely, possibility that Trump would act on. He has that strong relationship with Saudi Arabia. That's going to be very, very important. He will have, if he becomes president and Netanyahu stays in power, which seems to be likely, he has a very strong relationship with Netanyahu now. So there would be that triangulation. So I think that things would not stay the same. Would they be worse? Possibly. Would they be better? Possibly. I don't know. But I think that's a likely scenario if he were to become president.
What about under Harris? I mean, she's married to a Jew already. You think that will give her some leverage?
No, I don't think I'd give her any leverage. She feels very strongly that the Palestinian citizenry has suffered, and they have. There's no doubt about that. She's made her views very, very open on that. Netanyahu and Vice President Harris did not get along. They were professionally cordial, but behind the scenes, it's not a good relationship. But because she is the U.S. president, then Netanyahu would have to listen because she's going to be there for 4 years, and he no longer has the same leverage that he thought he had. But Israel, the advantage that Israel has, and everyone knows, is they have a very strong lobbying effect on U.S. Congress and the political system. So that will play a role. But she has not been as clear, frankly, on foreign policy as I think a lot of people would hope. And I think the reason for that is she has been the vice president under Biden. And so she is stuck, whether she likes it or not, she's stuck with Biden's policy for right now out of professional loyalty. And perhaps she believes in that policy. But clearly that policy has failed. And so she needs a new approach, and she hasn't stated what that might be.
Stephen, always appreciate your analysis on the issues. Thanks again for joining us on The World Today.
Thank you. Pleasure and honor as usual. Thank you.